Hi, this is Greg Herder, and I'd like to welcome you to another one of the Mega Marketing shows. This is my monthly program to really keep you on track so that you're moving forward with what you've learned at one of my live seminars or one of my online training courses, so that you're actually applying that information practically and completely to make a difference in the quality of your life, your performance. I also want to make sure that you don't feel isolated, so that you took a class online, you went to a seminar, and now you're back applying it. You don't feel like you're the only one that's struggling, trying to figure it all out. I also want to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable, so that you are actually taking regular steps. Now, you're actually watching this, which is really important, because that means you're actually engaged, you're moving yourself forward. Also, I want to provide new information to inspire you, to keep you growing and moving forward on a consistent basis. This month, I'm going to talk about something that is so very important. It's practical time management. Little things you can do to make a huge difference. Now, over the years, if you're like me, at various points in my life, I woke up and I said, gosh, I need better time management. And the problem was, I'd go and read a time management book. I've taken some time management seminars, and they'd give me this very structured way of being. To-do lists, a variety of things. And I always struggled, and I'd work on them for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even a month. But then I'd go back to my old ways. It wasn't until I started working with Jim Rohn, and he really got me to think about time management in a more practical point of view. So I want to make this a very practical session. I want to give you some tips that I found are incredibly valuable. Now, some of them seem counterintuitive to agents. They feel like, gosh, if I do that, it might take more time, and yet in the end, I've always found it actually saves you a huge amount of time. So it's incredibly practical. Now, I want to recommend this month my book of the month, and it's called Getting Things Done. And its subtitle is The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. Now, to me, this is one of the best books on time management out there. But it's really not about time management, it's about activity management. And it teaches you how to get more done in the same amount of time or even less time. And so it's one of the things that is very practical, that's going to help you move yourself forward. Some of the ideas that I'm going to talk about today come from the book. Most of them are a summary of different things that I found that worked for me, and as I've taught time management over the years, that I found, and I get feedback, that these are the things that are practical for a lot of people. Now, the first thing I want you to realize is this. I'm not claiming to have every bit of information. I'm not claiming to be an expert on productivity, time management. And I really want to make sure that today you are a student, not a follower. Make sure that what you do with whatever I teach you, with what anybody teaches you, is a product of your own conclusion. I really believe that to get the most out of your life, what you need to do is go and take in all the information. Listen to what I had to say. Listen to what David Allen has to say. Anybody else that you think may be a voice of value that you can learn from. And then sort through it and say, gosh, I'm going to take this little bit of stuff from Greg. I'm going to take this from David. Nobody has every bit of information out there. I know once I really understood this and realized that, gosh, I need to pull from the very best where I can find, it made a huge difference. So don't just listen to me and then take action and say that's the only thing I'm going to do. Listen to me, see if it makes sense, and make sure you think it through so it's a product of your own conclusion. The real point of this is that you should be a student, not a follower. See, I'm not interested in getting followers. I'm interested in fellow travelers, fellow students that want to have a dialogue, that say, gosh, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. So I want to have that engagement, that feedback, so I'm learning from you just as you're learning from me. And that will make it all so much more productive for us. Now, the first thing I want to start off with is this. There is no such thing as time management. And this is sort of an important thing to really get. You cannot manage time. And this is critical to really mentally get your mind around. If you could manage time, you could take 5 minutes and you say, gosh, I've got an extra 5 minutes here. So I'm going to take this 5 minutes and I'm going to save it till this evening. I've got an extra 10 minutes here. I'm going to save it. Now you could take 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and then I can say, I've got an extra hour. See, that would be called managing time. But here's what I found. Time marches forward continuously for us all. I have found that rich people, poor people, happy people, sad people, relaxed, stressed people, successful, unsuccessful people, everyone has exactly the same amount of time and is moving the same forward for everybody. See, I used to think, gosh, if I could get the time that person has, I could do so much more. And then Jim said, Greg, that's crazy. That's a mental way of thinking about it. It'll never get you anywhere. Everybody has exactly the same amount of time. To really bring this home, I want to start off by reading this little quote from Arnold Bennett's book on living on 24 hours a day. And if you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. You can get it for free from the Gutenberg Project. It's online. You can download it through Google. It's a great little book. Now, it was written a long time ago, and so some of the wording is a little bit different, but this quote really epitomizes time, in my opinion. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle. An affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It's yours. It is the most precious of possessions. No one can take it from you. It's unstealable. And no one receives either more or less than you receive. In the realm of time, there's no aristocracy of wealth, no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day. And there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely precious commodity as much as you will, and the supply will never be withheld from you. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future, impossible to go into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow, it is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour, it is kept for you. I said the affair was a miracle, is it not? You have to live on this 24 hours of daily time. Out of it you have to spend health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use, is a matter of the highest urgency and the most thrilling actuality. All depends on that. Your happiness, the elusive prize that you are all clutching for, my friends, depends on that. Arnold Bennett said that well. So the only thing you can manage is how you decide to invest the 24 hours each of you receive every day. And if you think, how do I get the most out of today? I'd never get this day back. It's the only day I have to maximize my productivity. And the key is to start thinking in terms of activity management. What activities do you want to do with this day of your life? And Jim said, Greg, if you think at your day and ask yourself, what do I really want to get out of the day? What do I want to do with this day? What's the investment that I want to get in? It will start changing everything because now your priorities come into life. Now, the first thing I want you to do is start by looking at what you did yesterday and each day last week. Now, here's the funny thing. If you start looking at what you actually did, it gives you some interesting insight. And once you're clear, what did I really do last week? Ask yourself if you did the same thing that you did yesterday, every day for the next year, where do you think that would take you? What would the results be on your life? Now, it's not right or wrong, but you want to think about it, because here's what I found. What you did yesterday reveals the truth about what you value most in your life. Now, maybe yesterday is not a great example for you, but look at the last week. See, if you take a look at the last week, unless you were on vacation, it's probably a good representative of what your priorities are. Now, so many people say, oh no, last week is not a good example, and the week before is not a good example. Well, this happened, and this happened, and this happens. See, life is always happening, and we tend to postpone it because we're thinking about the short term instead of the long term. If you do not feel that your actions are taking you where you want to go, it is because you're not clear on what your core values in life are, on what your goals and objectives are. And this is so important to understand. Now, one of the best ways I've actually found to get clear in productivity management is to clarify your own values and objectives for your life. You need to be clear, what are my values and what are my goals? If you are not crystal clear about what is important to you, then I want you to know activity management, time management of any sort is sort of pointless, because it doesn't matter. If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter where you arrive. So start by making sure you review your values clarification worksheet. Now, you probably got this from one of my 3-day seminars or one of my online training programs. If you want a copy of this, you can just email me at greg@gregherder.com, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of the personal values clarification form. I do want your feedback from what you get out of it, though. Now, once you're clear on your values, your objectives for your life, it's so much easier to now be more productive. I have found that we all suffer from one of two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Now, I found that discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. Now, here's the amazing thing. I've given you a values clarification sheet, and there's no urgency for you to go do it. Nobody's going to be calling you up the next day and say, gosh, did you do that values clarification sheet? But let me tell you, it's incredibly important. It's one of those things that's important, not urgent. Because once you clarify what's important to you, your values, what do you really want to accomplish, moving forward, figuring out, gosh, what I'm going to do is so much more valuable. So many people say, well, I'm going to create a to-do list, but they're doing the wrong things because they haven't clarified their values, their goals, their objectives, where they're headed. See, if you're clear on where you're going, your values, and you make a little bit of progress, you're still going to be a lot better off than if you do a whole lot of things that are unimportant, that don't matter. So this is critically important. I have found that what we're really talking about here is life management. That's what time management is. Life is made up of all those minutes, days, years. And life management at its best, and it's in its most productive state, is a balancing act between living fully in the present moment, getting as much as we could out of the moment while we are working on creating the future of our dreams. So what we have to do is learn this interesting balancing act to be present fully where we are right now in this moment while we think about where we want to go. Now, this is critically important. And so many times I think that people, get these confused and say, well, you can do one or the other. But I found the most productive people are doing both. If you read The Power of Now, there is great power in living in the present moment. But if you're only in the present moment, never thinking about the future, let me tell you, there can be some challenging consequences for that. So I always want you to reach this balance. If you're always living the future, thinking about where I want to do, you never get to actually enjoy your life. You're always living, gosh, when I arrive there. So it's always a balancing act to find that great balance. what I found is you got to learn to be happy with what you currently have and who you currently are as you work to become the person you want to be and attract what you want to have in the future. And that's always the interesting push-pull of life. Let me tell you, if you will start each day by taking a few minutes and reading the answers to the gratitude exercise, the exercise that is around in so many different places. It's in a ton of different books. I give it out at so many seminars. It just focuses you on what you're happy for right now. And then read your 5-year goals. Just the big picture goal, where am I headed in 5 years? Then think about your goals for this coming week and for this particular day. Now, this is a copy of the gratitude exercise. What am I grateful for in my life? What am I proud of? What am I happy about? What am I committed to in my life? Who loves me? Who do I love? What can I do to make a difference in someone's life today? Now, here's what I found. If you wake up in the morning and take a few minutes and just think about the answers to these questions, it's hard to have a bad day. You're now happy with where you are, even if you're in difficult situations. See, you can be in a most difficult situation, have all kinds of stress, if you take a few minutes and think about what you're grateful for. There's plenty of things to be grateful for in your life right now. I mean, I am so grateful for so many different things. I recently went and watched a documentary movie. The title of the movie is The Salt of the Earth. And it's amazing. He has some pictures in there that are heartbreaking. But when I left the movie, I was so grateful. I thought, oh my goodness, I have no reason to complain about anything ever. And ever since I've watched that movie, every time I have this temptation to complain, I think back and say, oh my goodness, compared to so many people that have so little, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. So you've got to learn to be happy, grateful. Even if you've got challenges, stresses going on in your life, be happy for what you do have. Now, the key is to also follow it up by thinking, what is it I want? Where am I going? That's why you've got to work on the gratitude exercise, then take a few minutes and think about, gosh, where am I going 5 years from now? Where am I going to arrive? And get that big picture goal to start with. Gosh, here's where I'm going. I can see myself living here for 5 minutes. This is part of making that quantum leap, taking a few minutes and visualize yourself living that life. Now you want to bring it back to practicality. Okay, what do I really want to accomplish in this next week? I can see where I'm going 5 years from now, but now, what are the things I want to do in this next week? And now, most importantly, before I get my day going, what do I want to accomplish out of today? What are the priorities for today? Now, sometimes I think we can get ourselves into trouble because we're always trying to be perfect in a day. And sometimes if we attach our own self-worth as a person of the outcome, we're going to procrastinate, especially on some of those big picture ideas. And we beat ourselves to death. I should have done that. I should have done that. And reality is that what you do today, what you do next week, has nothing to do with your value as a person. You are an incredibly valuable person, even if you don't do anything else. So separate what you did or did not do from your value and just understand that you are a valuable person. Now, the next thing I found that stops a lot of people from moving forward is they're gathering too much information. And nobody is ever going to have all the information they'd like. So what you have to do is gather key information and decide. Successful people tend to make decisions quickly and change their minds very slowly. Unsuccessful people decide very, very slowly, and then they change their mind quickly. What you have to do is say, gosh, let me take enough information and trust that I'm going to make a good decision. Now, every now and then you're going to make a bad one. But if you make decisions faster, you'll say, gosh, I found out about it faster, and you'll be able to self-correct. But you've got to be willing to move forward. One of the traps is to major in what I call the minors. And I don't want you to major in the minors. This is spending major time on minor things. Now, the best way to avoid this is always keep in mind the 80-20 rule. Now, we've all heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people do 80% of the productivity. Here's what I found. 80% of the stuff that you do only contributes 20% of the value of your life. 20% produces 80% of its value. And so what you want to do is separate the majors and minors. And now spend the majority of your time on that top 20% activity. Now, here's what I found. Usually that top 20% is not always enjoyable. It's not urgent. But over the long run, if you focus on that, it will make the biggest difference on your productivity, your happiness, your success in life. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a list of the key performance measures that you're looking at regularly. So your life is sort of like your car. You're driving along in your car and you're looking at the oil pressure and the gas gauge and the speed, and you're getting feedback. Now, if suddenly the oil pressure spikes up, you say, gosh, there's a particular problem. You know, whatever it is that you do in your career, in your life, you need to have those performance measures that you're watching, because they're indicators, they're early warning indicators of problems that you can correct early. So in your real estate career, now ask yourself, how many new people are finding out about me each day? What's that number? These are the new people that are finding out about your story. How many of your personal brochures are you passing out every day? How many of your power cards are you mailing out each month? How many ads are you running on Facebook, on Google? How many people are being exposed to you? Now, if that's not a big enough number, everything else is going to be problematic. You say, well, I'm really good at closing. Well, gosh, but you don't have anybody to close. See, you've got to say, okay, it's a funnel. I've got to put a lot in the funnel so that now it comes out. And this is always the way it works. So for whatever you're trying to accomplish, you want to set your key performance measures on that, whatever it is. So you want to look at it and say, okay, in this area, I need to look at this. Then in this area, I need to look at this. How many closings do I have? Well, to get to the closings, here's what it is that I need to do to accomplish this. This makes such a huge difference. Then spend 80% of your time on that top 20% activity that produces the best results. Now, these are the things that never seem urgent. It's getting my marketing out there. Now, your marketing pieces are never going to call you up and say, listen, I've got a problem. This happened and this happened. Consume your time. Clients will, other agents will, but the things that are truly important don't. So make sure you're actually working on the things that are going to move you towards your goals. Let the 80% take care of themselves. I found that they'll get done. Don't worry about them. Also, don't confuse movement with accomplishment. Now, I see so many agents that fall victim to this trap. They think that, gosh, I'm busy. I'm doing all these activities. But if you're doing the wrong activities, if you're doing busy work, you may be even talking to clients, but it's not dollar productive stuff. It's not stuff that's leading to new business, future business, providing better service. See, that can fake you out. You go to a training session on something, but it's, gosh, well, I went to this REO training session. I learned about REOs today. Well, are you doing REOs? Well, no. Well, then why go? Why waste your time on something that, one, is no longer valid in the marketplace and is becoming less and less? I see agents still spending time on things that, gosh, where the marketplace used to be. Don't go there. Don't confuse movement for accomplishment. Before you take any action, ask clarifying questions. This is so useful. Before you take action on anything, whether it's a problem with a client, your marketing, whatever it is, ask yourself what's really going on here. And take a step back. And what I found is that most challenges in life are like an onion. And onions have a variety of layers. And the best thing to do is look at, gosh, what's going on? Is there something that I'm not thinking about here? If we solve the surface problem and we don't peel back the layers to get to the core, we'll just keep dealing with that same thing over and over again. And that's a huge waste of your time. I have found that every time you think, every time you act without really thinking it through, getting clear on what's the problem, what's the cause here, it'll come back to bite you. You know, it reminds me of learning how to empathize with your own children, to figure out what their needs are. One lady was telling me a story about her son, an 8-year-old son, and he just was always late getting ready for school. And she would scold him, lecture him, you got to be ready at this time, get him up early. He'd go back to bed, he would eat slowly, he'd do all these things. And it was becoming more and more a problem and was just driving her crazy. And one day, she actually sat down with her son. And she said, tell me, in the mornings, you struggle getting ready for school. Why? Do you like going to school? And at first he was reluctant, but as she genuinely listened, tried to find out his need behind the behavior, he said, Mom, school is all about the future. And she said, well, what do you mean it's about the future? He said, it's about getting a job in the future, about getting better grades, it's about going to college, it's all in the future. And his mom looked at him and said, so you don't feel like school is meeting your needs right now? And she gave him empathy because he felt that school was something in the future. Now, she had this conversation, she thought about it, she thought, well, how am I going to get him to understand that this is important? The next morning, she came down and he was ready to go to school. And this continued. And she finally said, well, what is that about? But she gave him empathy for his feelings, his needs, and now he was able to move through it. And I found that that's peeling the onion. It's getting down to the layers that really make the biggest difference. Sometimes we just jump into sort of a reactionary mode instead of saying, what's the cause of this? So always ask, what are the issues behind the issue? And what I found is you will save so much time by getting down to the core the first time you deal with something. This is true with a client, your spouse, your kids. Now, it takes a little bit more time up front to think, gosh, what's going on here? What's the causation of this? But what I found is when you do this, it'll end up saving you so much. The next thing I want you to do is learn to think on paper. Now, learning to think on paper is one of the most practical ways of saving time in so many areas of your life. Now, learning to think on paper is one of the most practical ways to actually get the most out of your time. Now, again, this is one of those things that seems counterintuitive to most people because they think, gosh, I don't have time to sit down and clarify my thoughts, get it down on paper. But here's what I found. You will make dramatically better decisions. It will save you so much time because you won't redo things over and over again. Writing it down truly helps you clarify, helps you remember it better. The research on this is overwhelming. Then I don't mean to take action until you have a clear outline on paper. Here's the problem, here's the solution, here's the things I'm trying to do. This will truly help you avoid making major mistakes. Now, start by getting your goals onto paper. Now, some of you have been through my goal setting workshop, either online or in one of my goal setting personal development seminars. And we spend a long time on this. And it's important to think about what's really important to you. Unfortunately, we don't have time to do that in this class, but the reason you have to make sure you are crystal clear on your goals is because unless you understand where you're going, everything else is a waste of time. And it reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. She goes up to the Mad Hatter and she says, "Which way do I go? Which way do I go?" And he says, "Well, where are you going?" And she says, "I don't know." And his answer is, well, that it really doesn't matter which way you go. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish with today, next week, next year, 5 years from now, don't worry about managing time. It doesn't matter. See, people say, "Well, Greg, I want to get all this done." Well, why? You'll find you're just filling up your life with busy work. You want to be clear. So the first thing to do is make sure you're clear on your goals. 5 years, 1 year, then 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but you've got to be crystal clear on that. Now, if you haven't done this, I recommend you go through my goal accomplishment guide. This is where you're going to start with your 5-year goal and then break it down into short-term, long-term, personal goals, work goals. This is so incredibly valuable. Now, here's the key with this. What you're going to do is break down your goals, and now you're going to think, what are the action steps? Here are the next 3 action steps I can put, and now put due dates next to them. So now you can move these from long-term to specific activity times. Now, this will let you lay out a game plan for the next year, 5 years, so easily. And it's incredibly valuable. So start with your personal goals, then work with your business goals. And just go through this exercise. Now, this takes some time, but it's so critically important. Nothing else will make a difference until you get this down on paper. Now, this is also going to give you a goal snapshot, and this is sort of that, key performance indicators that I'm talking about. It's going to be a little different for each one of you. So, what are your production goals? What are you doing as far as activities per week this time? And now you can see, gosh, these are the key performance indicators that are going to move me forward. So make sure you're doing this. Now, again, if you want to copy my goal accomplishment guide, just send me an email at greg@gregherder.com, and I'd be happy to send you a copy. Just in there to say, hey, I want a copy of your goal accomplishment guide. The next way you need to learn to think on paper is to create a journal. Now, a journal gives you a perfect memory. It's something you should carry around with you all the time. I will tell you, I carry around a journal with me, everywhere I go. And it makes such a huge difference. And now, as I'm going through the day, I just jot things down in my journal. Now, this makes such a huge difference because otherwise you'll have an idea and say, oh, that was a good idea, I should do that, but then you'll forget about it. You go have a conversation with a client, you jot it down in your journal. You go talk to somebody, you jot it down in your journal, you date it, and now you have a record. And what I found is that now you can get everything out of your head and onto paper, and it makes such a huge difference overall. Now, a couple little things about a journal. A journal helps you capture your ideas and gives your mind space to actually come up with better solutions that will dramatically improve your time. A journal helps you also capture what's going on in your life so you can review and learn from your life experiences. See, I found this is so valuable. If you start keeping a journal and now you start documenting the key things in your life, you had a disagreement with your spouse over XY issue, and you just summarize, gosh, this happened, this happened. Now, you go on and all of a sudden, gosh, 2 weeks later, you're having the same argument. You reach the same conclusion. Now, when you're writing this down, somehow, at least for me, I see these patterns much more clearly. And now I can go back and say, okay, this is the issue. How do I now think about it differently? In problems that you have with an employee, your kids, your spouse, you will start to see patterns that now you can go to work and say, gosh, how do I change this? This will make a huge difference for you. Also, what we're going to do is start your journal, and any blank book will do. And I've actually found a book is much better than a computer, a tablet, anything else. I know we all tend to go this. I tried it both ways. I found the journals physically work so much better to me. Now, I have taken some of my journals and taken some of the information and now put them on a computer, summarize them, but let me tell you, it's much easier to capture this as you're going throughout the day just with a pen and paper. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is leave a bunch of blank pages, 20 blank pages at the beginning of your journal. Now you start writing your notes. You write your notes, date them, and now, as you do it, try and give a headline to what that note is about. Maybe you go back at the end of the day and you review it. Now, what you're going to do is sort of create an index. So you're going to start coming up with broad subjects, sales information, business information. And you're going to put those on every page of that sort of front index. And now, at the end of the day, you're reviewing it, and you just make a little quick note. Gosh, on page 23, issue with Mary Jane. And now you write a little summary. So now, over time, you create this index, and you can go to a journal and quickly look at that first index pages, and now find anything you want in that journal very quickly. Now, again, it takes a little bit more time to do this when you're writing it, but I found that over the long run, otherwise, if you just start writing notes, you'll fill these journals up, and now you go, gosh, I wonder what journal that was in. I have no way of actually going back, and you'll spend a lot of time trying to recreate it, but let me tell you, it will make such a huge difference. And we're going to talk about some of the things you're going to put on your agenda, your journal. One of them is all your agendas for the activities you're doing. Also, your journals will be one of the treasures you leave for your kids, because it's about what your life is about. It's the daily activities and what you're learning. This will become incredibly valuable. Now, the next thing I want you to do is create a project file for all the major projects you're working on. Now, I recommend a 3-ring binder. I've again found some of the old school things seem more productive to me than computer activities, and you can combine them with computer activities as well. Some spreadsheets, different things. But here's what you want to do. When you're creating a project file should start with a summary. Here's what this project is trying to accomplish. And you want to write that little summary so that if any knowledgeable person could pick it up, they would understand exactly what your end objective is. Now, the funny thing is, we get involved on projects, and somehow they can meander in different places because we don't have a clear, what I call, briefing tool to get us moving forward. And then, as you are working on that project, what you're going to do is, every time you work on it, you're going to start by making some notes in your project journal. Today, in the next hour, this is what I'm working on the project. You're going to summarize. Now, you're going to work on the project, and when you're done, say, today I accomplished these 4 things. Did this, this, and this. And what you want to do is always write your project file so that anybody could come and look at it and know exactly what has happened, what was most recently done, and what are the next action steps, so they could pick up exactly where you left off. Now, here's the most amazing thing. This is incredibly useful for you. So many people have a project they're working on, and it's got lots of moving parts. They aren't totally clear. They have an idea at the start that got them going on this, but they didn't put it on paper. They didn't get it on this project file. And now they go to work on the project, And now they put it aside and they come back to it a week, 2 weeks later, and now they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do next? And what I found is that they end up going through almost the whole amount of time to get to the next project because they've got to reorient themselves. Well, what has been done? What did I do? Try and remember all of that, all from their memory. And emotionally, it takes so much more time and effort. If you will use this, let me tell you, this is one of the biggest time savers on the planet. Now, again, it's one of those things that seems counterintuitive. It takes a little bit more time up front, but will get you so much more productivity at the end. Now, once I really learned this, this is what I wrote the listing follow-up system from. Thinking about, gosh, anybody could pick this form up and knows what needs to happen next, what happened, when they did it, how it happened. That's why the listing follow-up system works so incredibly well. I get so much great feedback from agents that use this. They say, Greg, I can pick up that listing service plan and I know exactly what to do next. I know what exactly has been done, and I can leave without ever having to remember anything. And now, when I get to the office, I can pick it up and know exactly what to do very quickly. I can give it to an assistant. They can take the next action steps. This is what really you want to break down every aspect of your life into, so that you have a project file that says, gosh, these are the things that are happening. Now, whenever you're ready to work on a project, pick up your project file and use it to review what has been done, where you are, and now what you accomplish. Before you go to work, let me tell you, you will get so much more done if you will do this. Now, once you stop working on a project, always summarize what you've accomplished and write out the next action steps you need to take. If you can just master these little things, this will make such a huge difference for you in your overall productivity. You cannot even imagine the huge impact in productivity this will generate for you. Then realize it's not the number of hours you put in. It's what you put into each hour that matters. And that's why this is so important. The challenge is to master the distractions. It is so easy to be distracted by things that take up time, but do not help you accomplish your objectives. So how do you do that? Well, thinking on paper is one of the best ways to do this, because what I found is if you think on paper, you can run your day much more effectively. If you don't, I have found the day will run you. So here's one of the simplest ways to do this. Don't start your day until you have it finished. Now, at the beginning of the day, write out the key things you want to accomplish for the day. Ask, what is the most valuable activity that I can do today? What are the highest productivity values that I can possibly do today? Now, some people do this better the evening before. Some people do it better the day of. Whichever works better for you is fine, but you want to make sure that you're clear. I know that for me, I tend to try to create a little combination of this. I'll think, gosh, what do I really want to accomplish tomorrow? And I'll have a general big picture idea, but then the next morning I'll actually put together the key plans. Here's the things I want to get done for the day. Also, at the beginning of every week, take an hour every Monday morning and plan your week. Here are the key things I want to accomplish this week. Here's the big priorities, and have a general feel for the week. Now, this will help each one of your daily plans be much more productive. And you're going to be able to see, am I moving towards my goals effectively? Now, every Friday, take an hour to review the past week. Write down, gosh, what worked well, what did not, what did I get done on my weekly plan, and what didn't I get done? Why didn't I get it done? When am I going to put it in? Is it important to put into a plan? Can I release it? If I ignore it, is it okay? And just walk yourself through that mental effort every Friday. Let me tell you, people say, well, Greg, I don't have 2 extra hours. Those 2 hours will make you so much more time. Planning, Monday morning, the week ahead. Reviewing, Friday afternoon, what happened this week. And it's so critical. Then, lay out the week ahead and put the highest priority or items for the following week on your schedule. Every Friday, put those highest priority activities. Now, you can sort of start your week planning on Friday. Then that Monday, you're going to spend another hour. You're going to think about it. Okay, what's really the idea? And what I found is that you've now had the weekend where you haven't really been actively thinking about it, but you'll come up with ideas on how to get so much more done. It's that energy that comes out of it. Also, once a month, at the beginning of the month, take a half a day and think about the month. What are the key things? Now, this is a time I found if you will dedicate a half a day of planning for each month, thinking about your life, your priorities, reviewing your goals. Start by reading your 5-year goals, your 1-year goal. Now, look at where you've come, review where you are, and just think about the projects you've got going, maybe review your project books, but now plan out the key activities for the next month. And what you want to do is a little strategic thinking. It requires more strategic thinking than planning the week. But now when you're doing this, make sure you put your personal life right in there. The time off, the priorities with your family, birthdays, anniversaries. You're going to plan those right in there. And now you aren't running to the store the afternoon of your anniversary looking for some gift. You can plan it well. It will make such a huge difference. See, a great birthday, a great anniversary requires forethought. This is where you get that to happen. Now, when you're planning the month, don't get too granular. Don't get caught up in the details. That's going to come on the weekly and then really the daily schedule. This is where you make sure that what I call the big priorities, the big rocks fit. Jim Rohn said, Greg, you got to put the big rocks into your bowl of life first, then the little rocks, then the gravel, then the sand, then the water. So you start by thinking about the big rocks. See, if you put the water, the gravel, the little rocks in first, the daily distractions of life, you don't have room for the big rocks. You can't get them in. But if you put the big rocks in first, the key priorities in your life, those are the big rocks, the things that are most important to you. Now you can fit everything else in around them, and you will have a much fuller life. Also, don't start your year before you have it finished. It's important to take a day, even 2 days every year, and go away and plan. Think about what you really want. Every year you need to take a day and now think again, where are my 5-year goals? Now, some of it may change, some of it's going to be consistent, but this is where you get to evaluate to change. Bill Gates said that one of the most valuable things he learned to do every year was take a week off and think about the year ahead. I will tell you, incredibly productive people say this is one of the most valuable things to do each year. Take a year, really think about where you want to go, what you want your life to look like. I promise you will end up with a much happier life, much more productive. Now, it doesn't seem like because there's always things to do, but this is not a vacation week. This is a week where you're going to really plan. So don't say, gosh, I'm going to take a vacation week. Take a week, go someplace, and really work on your 5-year goals. Prioritize it, plan it, think about it. What do I have to do to make this happen? And now break it down so that you have some big picture yearly activities. You bring them back and you really focus now on the year ahead of you. What are the key priorities you want to accomplish? And lay them out so that now for January, I want to accomplish this. February, the big picture ideas. Now don't get granular, but now you have so much more focus. And let me tell you, you'll get excited about this. Every time I do this, I get excited about what I can accomplish in the year ahead. Now, as part of this, I also want you to tap into the power of concentration. Create uninterrupted times that you can concentrate on the tasks that need concentrated effort. Starting and stopping is a huge waste of time. If you can figure out, how do I schedule my planning time so I have it uninterrupted? I'm going to turn my cell phone off. I'm going to be unavailable for these 2 hours, these 3 hours. Get through a key element. Now, one of the best ways to really concentrate your effort is think about meeting preparation, reviewing contracts, writing, blogging, your marketing, reviewing your profit and loss, your strategic planning activities. All of these require focused attention and concentration. They also require that you have an agenda for the activities that are even a little bit important. For each one of those activities, I want you to create an agenda. We tend to think of an agenda for a meeting. But I found that if you create an agenda for any activity that you're going to do, you want to create a house flyer, create an agenda for the house flyer. Gosh, what's my priority here? And I've given you just some ideas here of things that you might want to create on an agenda. What is the major outcome I want to accomplish? Always start your agenda with that. For this particular activity, whether it's a meeting, a phone call, a negotiation, whatever it is, a flyer working on, a blog, what is the major outcome you're trying to accomplish with this? Then, what are the key points I need to cover in the meeting, in the phone conversation, in the post, in the article you're writing, the ad you're creating? What information do I need to ask for from the other party? What questions do I need to ask? Now, I found if you do this for every meeting, every phone call, every important conversation, negotiations, whatever it is, if you write a little agenda before you go do this, let me tell you, you will save yourself a huge amount of time. You'll be so much more productive, and what you're trying to accomplish will get done. Have you ever said something like, oh my goodness, you call somebody up and you say, gosh, hi John, Mary, how's the kids, how's this? You do your pleasantries, and you say, oh, by the way, I need to talk about this and this and this. Oh, and now you get to the end of the phone call, say, you know what, there was something else I need to go over. I can't remember what it was. If I remember, I'll call you back. Now think about it. You've got to call them back. That's a huge waste of time. And yet people do this with meetings, with so many different things. They have an important conversation with their kids, their spouse. And instead of making an agenda and say, here's the key 3 points, they say, well, gosh, I did this, I covered this, I covered this. Oh, I wish I would have covered that. Why? Because you didn't take the time to have an agenda. And here's what I found. If you have an agenda, all these things, the phone call will go much faster. The meeting will go much faster. The important conversation will go much faster. And the outcome will be much higher productive. Because you're getting to the key things that you thought about when you aren't in the heat of that particular activity. I hope this makes sense to you. I mean, if it does, please let me know. In the feedback form at the bottom, just write, this makes sense to me, or the little comments box. So I know that this is making sense to you, because let me tell you, once I got this, this made such a huge difference. So make an agenda for anything that's important before you do it. Now, the next thing I found is a huge time saver, is to learn to say no without guilt. Learning how to say no is so critically important. I have found that oftentimes we let our mouth overload our backs. First of all, never say yes to something that you don't really want to do. I promise it will cost you more than you could ever imagine. Somebody comes up to you and says, can you help out here? And we want to help, but gosh, we don't commit unless you know you really want to do it. And it's better to say no up front. I promise it'll cost you so much more if you say, well, yeah, I can help out, but now you're going to work out all kinds of ways of getting out of it. You aren't going to do a great job. Trust me, just learn to say no up front without guilt. You're the only one that understands your priorities in life. And if you're clear on your goals, objectives, now just trust that. If you have any doubt about the importance of this, read Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Now, for those who've been to my seminars, you know I talk about this book all the time. I think this is the best communication book on the planet. It's also one of the best leadership books. It's a book that isn't always easy to read, but let me tell you, it gives you a framework for thinking and communicating so much more effectively, so that you're focusing on what are your feelings and needs as a human being, what are the feelings and needs of the person you're talking to, and it will avoid so much hurt, misunderstanding, confusion, if you will use the simple communication tools that Marshall talks about. Let me tell you, it's so powerful. Now, the next thing I want you to do is learn to touch paper and email and any other electronic devices once and only once. Dealing with all incoming correspondence, here's the system that I want you to use. And this will work for almost anything. First of all, only check email, only open letters, only work on things if you have at least 20 minutes to focus. I mean, I do not get people walking around with their cell phone continuously checking email. I'm out with my spouse, I'm at the dinner table, and I've got my cell phone here, and I'm checking email. Now, what? If you get an email that you wanted to go do something, are you going to get up from the table? Are you going to go? How rude. You aren't even there. So don't check your email on your phone unless you're in a position to actually do something about it. I mean, this is so important to actually get. You can control your phone. The phone does not control you. Jim Rohn, way back when, said, Greg, I'm amazed. People think the phone controls them. And he used to tell a story about having people over to dinner. And Jim was very good at ignoring the phone. He'd be in his house, and years ago, before all the technology, the phone would ring. He didn't have an answering machine, anything else at the time, and he would just let it ring. They said, I'd have people over, and my phone would ring, and they said, Jim, the phone is ringing. He says, I know, it's okay. We're enjoying our dinner. I don't want to answer it. Well, you have to answer your phone. Jim, go answer it. And Jim said, no, I'm just going to ignore it. They'll stop in a few minutes. And he says, some people would get up and go answer his phone. And now they answer the phone. Jim, it's for you. He says, not surprising. They called my phone. Your cell phone is the same way. It's a tool to help you, not control you. So learn to not let it control you. Now, there are times where you might want to turn on Facebook notifications, stuff like that, but there are times you got to turn them off. You got to say, listen, right now, I'm with my kids. I'm with my spouse. I'm doing here, I'm not going to let my phone intrude. Otherwise, I'm never going to have the quality of relationship connection that I really want. So now, if you have 20 minutes, take time, and here's what I want you to do. When you open up an email, when you pick up a piece of paper, if it will take less than 5 minutes to complete that item, do it right then and there. Don't go to the next item. Don't open up the next email. Take care of that item right then and there. Now, if you can get it in 2 minutes, that's fine. If it takes 6 minutes, that's fine. But typically you want to say, gosh, if this is I can do this in less than 5 minutes, I am going to complete that right then and there. Now, if you think it's going to take more than 5 minutes to complete, and it's important, here's what I want you to do. Delegate it, send it to somebody to take care of. Forward it to your assistant, wherever it is, or right then and there, say, okay, this is going to take an hour or two work on this. I am going to put it onto my calendar next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And take it right then and there and put it onto the calendar so you have a calendar activity on how to deal with it. Let me tell you, there are so many great systems to help this. I use Follow-Up CC. If you want some information on it, send me an email. I'll send you a link to it. It's a great little system so you can put things on a calendar in a heartbeat. Let me tell you, it was so powerful. Now, if it's not important, and you think you may want to come back to it or save it for any reason, what I want you to do is file it. What I want you to do is create 12 files in your email. January, February, March. And now, during that month, you put everything in the file. If you think, gosh, I may want to save it. Now, here's what I found. Every 90 days, if you haven't gone back to the file and everything in the file, you're just going to delete it. So now, you save things for 90 days. If you haven't used them in 90 days, the chances of you ever going back to them are almost negligible. So what I want you to do is every first of the month, go back, and now you should have information from the last 90 days saved, and this just rotates. Now you have all 12 files, but now if you understand this, most of them are going to be empty because you're deleting them. Now think about it. I see people create emails, save them for years, and they've got 105,000 emails. Trying to find something in that mess, trying to read through it, oh, gosh, you're craziness. Throw away everything else. Remember, with today's technology, if you have to, you can find it. You can recreate it. So don't worry about it. Trash things. Get rid of it. Just take everything you have in your office and put it in a big box. And just sort of, make a quick list of what's in the box. If you've got a whole bunch of stuff and you're going to need a whole bunch of boxes, put them all in there. But just put a little thing. Now go take them, stack them somewhere. Put them into storage. And if you don't use anything for 6 months, throw it all away. This will make your life so much more uncluttered. Make yourself more happy. Finally, the last thing I found that will actually help you manage your life and your time much more effectively is always work on your own personal development. This is how you become more valuable as a human being. Working on your own personal development is one of the easiest ways to get more out of your time. Start by making a commitment to read a book a week. That will change your life. If you just read a book a week, you say, gosh, I'm having some money problems. Well, then read 20 books on money management, on financial health, on wealth. Don't read a book and think you understand it. Read 20, 30. Jim said, Greg, if you want to be happy, study happiness. If you want to be wealthy, study wealth. If you want to be successful, study success. But make it a study. That's not a book. It's a variety of books. It's a variety of classes. Attend all the lectures. Always be learning and growing. I think one of the biggest difference that has made an impact in my life is that I've tried to be a continuous learner. I have gone to more classes, taken more courses. I've read more books, and I think that makes a huge difference. My wife thinks I am a terminal student. And yes, I've collected degrees, I collected education, but it's always one of those things that's learning. You've got to keep growing. Now, I also found you have to recharge yourself every day. I want you to get in the habit of just clearing your mind 20 minutes every day. Now, meditation is so simple. It's learning to clear your mind, to calm your thinking. You focus on your breath, breathing in, breathing out, and you clear. Now, thoughts are going to flood your mind, especially when you start this. Try and just release them, and then to refocus. Now, this is so simple. There's all kinds of great books, simple little meditation guides, but really you're clearing your mind. If you can learn to clear your mind, your focus will be better, your health will be better, your stress will be better. There's huge research on this. You'll be more productive. Then exercise physically at least 4 days a week. That's at least 20 minutes of aerobic activity 4 times a week where you're sweating, you're active. Then take regular time off. 1 long weekend every single month, 3 or 4 vacation weeks every single year. Now, when you're thinking about this, make sure that when you're at work, you work, and when you're playing, you play. See, I used to get this confused. I'd be working all the time and thinking, gosh, I need to take my kids to the beach. But now I'm going to the beach, and I'm focused on my cell phone, work. No. When you work, work. When you play, play. And I found it's not even good to take a half day. See, if you go to work and you're planning to take off at 1 o'clock, guess what? The second you get to work, you're thinking about, gosh, what am I going to do at 1? Where am I going to go? And you don't get your work done. It's better to take the whole day off. So if you're going to take a day off, take the whole day. Go play, enjoy it, make it special. Wherever you are, be fully present in that moment for that activity. Now, I hope you found this valuable and useful. I want to make sure that you're using the information that I have shared with you in the training classes, programs online. Now, today, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time for questions, but if you have a question, type it into the control panel, and in a few hours, I'll have a chance to come back and answer all those questions, and I promise I will email you an answer to every question that you have. Also, if you want any of the forms, send me an email at greg@gregherder.com. Most importantly, I'd love your feedback. Please post your comments about this class today on my Facebook fan page. That's facebook.com/Greg Herder. Or send me an email with your feedback. This is what I'm doing. Your feedback is what inspires me to move forward. Also, feel free to share this with anybody that you think would benefit from it. Also, make sure you register for the free training class next month. Go to HH Calls and register for next month's training class. Put it on your calendar now. We'll send you the email reminder, but make sure it's a priority. Then, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you investing your time to be here. Your time is so incredibly valuable, and I respect that. I look forward to seeing you again at one of my live seminars, one of my online training classes, or one of these free coaching calls. Thank you, and God bless.